is working on localizing the electric vehicle industry as part of the country's efforts to reduce dependence on fossil fuels, transit towards a green economy, and keep pace with global progress in the automobile industry. In this regard, President Abdel Fattah al-Sisi instructed to continue working on deepening the localization of manufacturing electrical vehicles to keep pace with the global trend in this regard. He also has recently held several meetings with officials, businessmen and companies to follow the latest progress of localizing the industry in Egypt. A presidency statement said that President al-Sisi had seen some models of made-in-Egypt electric cars, noting that achieving local production of electric vehicles is part of the country's national transition strategy towards a green economy, given its positive impacts on the country and the people on the economic health and environmental levels. Electric vehicles will generate economic, technological, developmental and environmental benefits for Egypt, which is one of the few countries in the Middle East interested in the cutting-edge industry. No doubt the emerging industry will open new markets for Egypt in the region. Economists say that Egypt now has a large surplus in the output of electricity that can be directed for charging electric vehicles, noting that the government has a strong tendency to produce electric passenger cars and buses and to provide auto parts and maintenance centers. They expect in the next 3 years a sharp rise in electric cars will be seen in Egypt, since the government aims to set up a network of 3,000 electrical charging stations in the near future. The expansion in the production of electric cars will have significant economic benefits and reduce the state's huge expenditures for importing fossil fuels and subsidizing its prices for citizens. Egypt has diversified strategies to reduce emissions and implement measures to improve the environment and achieve sustainable development. Transition to a green economy will play a great role in luring foreign investments and increasing exports. Welcome back, ladies and gentlemen, continuing our discussion with Dr. Samy. Doctor, now, before we start talking about the electrical vehicles, now there's a major shift in direction that's been going on for years in Egypt as well, really going for a greener economy, going for eco-friendly industries and factories. We're talking about the green cities, the smart cities. We're hosting the COP27 conference later in November. So this really big shift in direction now, trying to develop or change or adapt the already existing industries and the already existing factories and the labor, all of this into an eco-friendly, a greener friendly, environmentally friendly industries. How easy or how difficult is it, and how expensive will it prove to be to change all the already existing industrial investments and operations here in Egypt?
Is it a potential to move into the green economy? The answer is yes. We are suffering right now from climate change, the sea level rise, the temperature changes. Right now we witness this on a daily routine and daily basis. So there is a huge potential, and it is a must right now for every single industry and every single entity to be environment responsible. And part of this responsibility, it comes with different industries, and it takes a lot of more than one flavor in this per se. For instance, some of the old classical manufacturing firms, they need to move into this less waste, less carbon footprint, about the emissions, all of these things, and it is coming. What about the enablers for this type of shifts? The Ministry of Environment started to develop the strategy for going to the green. And there is a great move, one by one, day by day, and was mentioned and was announced during the COP26 in Glasgow last year. It's how about to move all these type of businesses from one phase to another. let me give you one of the cases I myself witnessed back to 2017. At that time, there was a study tour to Tunisia where we were inviting industries to go to see how the financial sector in Tunisia is financing the clean energy projects and mega projects. And believe it or not, at that time, the number of participants or the number of those organizations who were taking this part of seriously was not more than 10, 15 entities in Egypt. Right now, we have green bonds. 5 years later, or 4 years later, actually in 2021, we have green bonds issued by the different type of banks, some sort of incentives, green funding, green loans, okay? A lot of potential coming from the donors to move into the green area. The World Bank is putting a lot of projects, for instance, in different cities. In Qaliobeya per se, they have a lot of this for the manufacturing zones over there to move into the green. The Industry Modernization Center as well is putting a lot of, they have a unit or a working group about if you would like to move to the green industry, we give you the consultancy, we give you the training capacity, and we give you some sort of funding to help you to move into this area. So that was not there a couple of years ago. Therefore, it is a must, it is a mandatory, and right now we have what we call the climate health, which is the most important part. The climate change is affecting very much so about our mental health. So if you are going to talk about the human capital working in your firm, so you need to ensure that I'm responsible to the environment, I need to work in that. So a lot of moves are coming in that direction, but the question is how speed and how fast and how we will be able to realize all these things in a push button. It takes time. It takes time. We have to believe in that. It takes time because you need to change the whole values chain from the supplier to the manufacturer to the retailer and then to the consumer. Okay, you and me, we need to be environmentally responsible in our behavior. So it is a bit in behavioral change in this area, as well as the adoption of all the laws and regulations and all these type of having the system integrated and moving forward in one direction in that way. Thanks to the new administrative capital, where all these elements are already considered when you talk about the green and the environment-friendly environment, starting from waste management, energy sufficiency, efficiency, the lighting, using the solar energy in the solar panels, in the daily activity in that. So we have a new role model started to be implemented, and this will be diffused in the other dimensions shortly. And this is the beauty of the technology, because at the first place people were reluctant. There was a lot of resistance to deploy the technology. But when we taste the flavor of the technology or the flavor of the new momentum, we move fast in that. And we witnessed this during COVID, where we have been away from the use of the technology, like in mobile payments and all these things. And all of a sudden, with the lockdown, people change all this behavior in that direction. So it is coming. Some incentive is there. The Ministry of Environment is doing a very good job as well. The financial market and the financial sector is providing a lot of incentives in that direction. The FRA, which is the Financial Regulatory Authority, the Central Bank of Egypt, they are put a lot of investments and put a lot of initiatives to support the industry as well. The Industry Federation as well is putting a lot of potential to move into the green environment. And then there's coming, it requires capacity building, education, business transformation, and even utilization of machineries and technologies. And this is the part we need to highlight. The world is in the same place, on the same starting point, or the same springboard. So who's going to jump, is going to take the first step, he's the one who's going to lead for the coming 10 to 15 years, inshallah.
Yes. Dr. Samy, now, if we're talking about electrical vehicles, now, being environmentally responsible, we need to keep a check on the carbon emissions, use renewable energy. Now, luckily, we have an excess of the production of electricity, and we could definitely make use of the electrical vehicles. Now, the presidency itself is taking paying special attention for the electrical vehicles industry. Now, before we start talking about the consumer and how would we encourage the citizen to sell his old gasoline-fueled car and opt for an electrical car, before we start talking about the end of that chain, how are we supposed to, or what is the general plan of establishing a proper infrastructure for the electrical vehicles in terms of manufacturing, maintenance, the batteries, the stations? About 3,000 stations are supposedly being planned for electrical cars. What is the general plan? And you've mentioned that these things take time, and we expect the same time to be a long time to be taken for the spread of such an industry.
Yes. With the announcement of the automotive and the electrical car strategy that will be announced very soon, it has 4 components or 4 elements. Part of it is all about the value chain. Part of it is about developing the spare parts and like the batteries and all these things, as well as the education and the replacements for the old cars and new cars and so on and so forth. The big manufacturers for automotive, they already announced by, for instance, one of those big companies in Germany, they announced back to 2018 that by 2022 they will stop their internal combustion engine production with their cars. But of course, this project was on hold due to COVID. So it was delayed or postponed a little bit. So with the rise of the strategy, once the strategy is announced, I think this will help a lot in moving forward. And we saw that the Prime Minister met with the CEOs of some of the world-class manufacturers. They came to Egypt and they announced that they are going to increase their investment in Egypt and the region in the terms of the electrical car as well, to depend on that. So it is great potential, to say, and we need to take it to the next level. We need to hit the future, okay, before we receive a future shock. In this area, having the value chain, the maintenance, how we can create jobs about that, how we can take the Egypt as the part to export to Africa or the neighbor countries as well. These are the strategic direction we should take this. Whenever this is in place, action plans will be extremely developed, because if we can say that there is a scarcity in funding, the answer is no. Anymore, because we have like national banks and investment banks. They already issued bonds and issued loans for green move and with green industry with a lot of very low interest rates. So they are in need to spend the money. So the industry should come in and should take and should develop and invest in that direction.
So is it about importing the know-how, the technology from other countries and other strong sectors?
Definitely, and even though own the technology and create the technology in your labs. This is the key. The technology in the batteries, technology in the sensors, for instance, moving to the industrial fourth revolution. This will help a lot in the coming period for this type of industry.
Yes. Well, ladies and gentlemen, as you've heard from Dr. Samy, we are on the right path for boosting not just the industrial sector, but a greener, environmentally friendly sector in all sort of products, including electrical vehicles. But as he mentioned, this is a process that takes time, but you have to start somewhere. Unfortunately, that's all the time we have for this edition of the Daily Debate. But before we go, I'd like to thank my very distinguished guest, Dr. Nizar Samy, the Innovation and Technology Management Consultant. Dr. Samy, always a pleasure having you on the show.
Pleasure is mine. Thank you.
Thank you very much, sir. Ladies and gentlemen, please stay tuned for more coming up on Nile International. I'm Hani Saif. Thank you for joining us.